Well, I'm back up here for another day. These videos are quite long as they're turning out. That's the heater. Don't want the heater on. Not under there. That's that extension lead. Plug that in. So we have the soldering iron coming alive. Could really do with a bit of water for that sponge. Let me just... We need to have a look at a few things here. I do need to find a few things. There you go. That's looking much cleaner. Those worried about fumes, don't worry. It's open to the elements up here. So, fumes not a problem. Right, so let's do a few things at once here now, because nothing underneath is connected. So therefore, we'll be able to use the multimeter on continuity mode, which is the mode that beeps, to figure out where there's breaks, where there's natural gaps, and so on. So we'll start with the main line. Just to recap, guys, the reason that we are looking for the gaps, in case I believe I mentioned it in one of the early ones, but if I didn't, this is the explanation to that now. The reason we need the gaps in the lines is because we're using block detectors to run the signalling, which will make the signalling automatic. These work on the passage of trains, which is measured by the current draw from the trains. So because of that, each section that I need to have a signal needs to have its own block detector, so that detector can tell the signal before it whether there is a train in that section or not. And as I say, this works on the draw of current from the locomotives, and later on at some point it will be the draw from some of the coaches, which will have lights, as well as I may put resistors in place on some of the wagons, so they will trigger the signals to be automatically at danger and protect the lines. So obviously these two shouldn't be connected. Now we do have this connection here, so that rail has resistance to there. So that goes all the way through there, which it shouldn't. There should be a nip in that line there. Because when that point is switched, which I'm presuming the motor's moved because it doesn't want to switch easily, when that's switched, this rail needs to become dead as part of the electrofrog. Now I think that's serving as part of the electrofrog. Correction, the polarity of that switch needs to change. Electrofrog separated, which we can do. I'll get as close as I can. Alright. Now I always end up breaking them blades once I've had them on there, so I'm going to try and not do that. So that's that one. So that now, between that rail and that rail, should be, but isn't. Oh, hang on. See, it should be a broken circuit. Unless I've not quite gone down further enough there. I can see that I've hit the baseboard there. There you go. So that is now broken. So we need to put a feed in here to feed that rail. We need to do the same for this rail to work out where the brakes are in that rail and whether we need to add any. So once again, in continuity, so that rail should meet with that rail. That rail does, but I believe that's part of the electrofrog there, and there's another hole there for a wire. So my guess would be that should be broken about there. That one didn't go as well. That should have it. If not, we can just keep revisiting it until it goes and makes a connection, but there should be enough there for it to make a connection. So that shouldn't be a problem. Right, the red one is the same. I need to make a small section out of it, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to run it to a specific location where it's going to be sensed. There's enough room here, to be fair, for a sensor straight underneath. So I'll wrap it round my finger twice, because that's round about what it is. Right. And then there's a beam in my way here. This one. Let's put the wire over the beam first. So with that now round, wrap it round my finger twice. About that much. So the reds will look a little less untidier than the blacks, but that's only because they do need chokes putting on them on sensor detection. So we'll just test this wire as we did the other one. Make sure we have a connection. Obviously, as we put more in, it gets a bit easier to test, because we can just test, right, with that section works, so we can test from that section to that section. This wire on there, that makes connection, and then that should not make connection to there, which is good. That's how it's supposed to be. Right. And feed that down through the hole. Yeah, because at some point these reds will have to be taken back out. To put the connectors on. I'll show you what I mean by the connectors in a moment. I do have one out and available still, but it's not going in this section just yet. That's in there now. Now this, I'll figure that out actually in a minute. I was going to say, we've got just where I've put that through, we do have the connections for the electric frog and the blue wire, the frog. So the blue wire, which is this one here, is controlling this frog. So that needs to be on that control wire that controls the frog, basically. And then the point motor then needs a feed from that rail and this rail, so then it can swap that depending, this line here, depending on what this is doing. We'll try this first one. Don't blame me if this doesn't work first time. So we will need some terminal blockage to do this, because you can't solder upside down. You can try, but from my experience it doesn't go very well, and I know you can't necessarily, once I'm under there, see what I'm actually up to, but I will try and explain it as I'm doing it. I just need to find my bloody things again. The terminal blocks, I've lost them again. I had loads of them. I've touched them today. Yeah, I've spun them on the chair. So what we're going to need is 3 terminal blocks, because what I also need to do is I need to feed the track power in and out. So I'll tell you what, I'll pull you down here and we can assess it together. So underneath this board, which is looking better, we have so the blue belongs to this point. Motor, which is one of the broken ones, but it will be fine because I have most of the connections, so at least even from the top we'll be able to spin it across like so, and it will work the way intended. The tricky part is me remembering what port does what. And to tell you the truth, I can't remember. So what we're going to do is we're going to break out a good old phone.
going to do Chrome, gauge, master, PM1, point motor, wiring. Soldering down while I just shape this to what I want it to do. Don't even know why I jumped them. So, as that's not wanting to go exactly where I want it to go, get a screwdriver and just force it where I want it to go. Which is up against that rail. Right there, like that. Just like that. Then soldering iron. In there like that. I will paint all these soldered connections so they blend in a bit more. Don't worry about that. Right, so then that's that one done. So we'll just make a short loop now on the bottom side, and then a loop from there over to there. And then that should be that side done. So that made such a mess of that. Swap that one into there. And then rather than undo the screw, then undo the screw, we will chop another bit of red off. This into internal block over the beam, not making that mistake like I did last time. In with it. Screw down. Then if I've done this right, this will work. If not, I just need to swap the sides that the point motor is operating on. So the red and black from the point motor will just need switching over. I keep chopping too much off here. That'll do. So yeah, so if it doesn't work, because I've not done the colours on the point motors might not align with the colours on everything else, but I can work with that. So that's that ready. So technically speaking, because we've done the red wire, we should be able to test that this works. Because the Electrofrog should become live, and then when switched, go dead. So when switched, this blue wire here, allowing the train to transverse over that to there. So now all we need to do is do the black. So when it's in this mode, this wire makes this black to allow the train to transfer over there. So the same as we did before, desolder what black is there. To do that, once again, we will just introduce a bit of nice new solder. There we go, I can feel that going. Reach under to find which wire it is. Is it this one? It's not that one. It's that one, and it's hot. In other words, it's come out alright. There we go. So same as we did before, I'm going to pull the black wire up. We'll do a short run into that point motor. And then from there, that should be done, and I think I'll call it a night at that point. Although I bet you all want to see a train tested. That was a bit stiff. And to be fair, if we put the connection block on for the other board, so we have the train power, there's nothing that says we can't test this straight and make sure that all works as it should. And that the controller is actually happy with the work we've done. That is tinned. Same again. Bend that. Put it down the hole. Now ideally I want that one to face that way. Because these rails are separated here, so I want every last chance for this to be made part of that, because this is controlled by this Electrofrog, and that is where it'll get complicated, and where we need to ensure that both Electrofrogs are the same, so then they do not short out. It's turned away straight away. It's the heat that does that. Did lock in though. There we go. So that is that there. So once again, we can test. Continuity. So that rail and that rail, I think that's a point fault, to be honest. Yeah. Is the same. Well, I've not wired it in yet, have I? 2 minutes, please. I am back with it wired up this time. So that rail should be that rail. think before. Needed pushing a bit further. Yeah, so that's a... Essentially that's an electrofrog point. That is underneath, there's a spring. When I pushed it up before, it would make. So that's more of a point, a motor problem than air wiring. That's there now. So like I said, I bet you all want to see it wired in and working. Well, we can do that. So obviously this takes its power from serial. So we would need to put the serial cable in. But for now we can just put this in temporarily. So it's always good to test your layout as well. Now, to be clear, I'm going to be testing this with my EWS loco, mainly because it was cheap and I care about it. But if it blows up, it's not the end of the world. Right, minor technical difficulties. Something I am going to watch it in the future. I'll explain it to you at a later date. But there is some changes in the pinouts amongst stuff as it goes along. So there we have train lights on. It's going to stop coming over this point because of how that point motor is. But as you can see, we're nicely working. We'll work all the way down to that gap that's in the rail down there, so it should stop in a minute. There you go, so that's where that gap is in the rail. So that is one section of the line. So that works. We'll take that off. Now the other thing that's obviously come live is the point decoder we put in. So we can see whether the points that we put in work, but I'm not too sure which ones they were, or whether they are going to work or not, or whether when they switch they're going to short circuit out. I don't think they should short circuit out because that little straight there is the only power we've got in the entire layout. Whichever points these are, they should be fine. And I think it's them two actually. So accessory control. I don't know what number we're in. So 100. It's not that one. accessory 101. It's not in that one. 102. Not in that one. 103. There we go. We have one. So that is this one. And that works flawlessly. I'll move you closer so you can see. Now we know which point it is. So throw in the point. Perfect. Perfect. And then the last one should be 104. Which isn't working. So we need to have a look, but we've got 1 point out of